Well, yeah, first of all, just give us a little bit. Why are you guys filing this lawsuit? Why are you guys active this one?
Well, the right to vote is under attack, and the right to vote is the cornerstone of democracy. We tend to think of attacks to democracy as national issues, but in reality, they're local issues. And so this is a case really about fighting for the right to vote and the right of a candidate to run for office that allows us to vote. So this is a situation in which a judge retired. It was treated as a resignation by the governor. A resignation prior to the end of a retirement term triggers the governor's right to appoint, and the judge retired, but it was treated as a resignation. And the governor swooped in and said, I'm going to appoint, and canceled the election the afternoon before the qualifying period. And that's how candidate Margaret Maggie Wagner found out that an election that she had been running for over a year, had invested hundreds of hours, time, money. She has two daughters. She holds a regular job. And on the afternoon prior to the beginning of the qualifying period, she found out that the election that she had been running for was canceled by this procedure. And then Marcy Atkins is our other petitioner plaintiff in this case. She is a long-term resident of Brevard County. She has voted in every election for the last 48 years. And so her right to vote in election has been taken away by this procedure where the governor has kind of swooped in, treated a judge's retirement as a resignation, and said, oh, guess what? Now I get to take the voice away from Brevard County citizens, and I get to put in who I want, not the citizens.
Let me ask, we've seen a few such cases around the state now, Orange County, Palm Beach, other places. Are you guys worried that this is a pattern that the governor may be misusing this authority in some way?
I'm not worried that this is a pattern. I know that this is a pattern. During the course of prepping this litigation, we have found that this has happened in at least 5 other counties in which people have been actively running to fill judicial spots, and the governor has swooped in and treated it like a resignation, and that he now gets to a point in the election was canceled. And what is happening is that a lot of judges who might have a political persuasion one way or the other, or maybe they were getting ready to lose their race against a really strong candidate, instead they resign early, and they know that that triggers, at least under the governor's interpretation, the right to come in and cancel the election and put in who the governor wants. So we know of at least 5 counties where this has happened. It's more candidates than that, but at least 5 counties in which the voters of those counties, we're talking millions of people, have been denied the right to elect their judges.
And what do you describe for me? What will winning the lawsuit achieve? What are you asking for from the county?
Well, we're asking that the election take place. The exact mechanism will be up to the court system, but I think the court has that power. We're asking for the election to take place so that whoever, including Maggie, wants to qualify and run, and the voters can pick, Marcy would pick, and vote for the judicial nomination here locally. But make no mistake, this case I think has statewide implication because of this practice that is being employed in multiple locations. If they are shut down here, it'll probably shut them down there from being able to do that as well. And so, we are very mindful that it has an impact to Maggie and Marcy and all the voters of Brevard County, but it really has an impact to all the voters in Florida.
What's the status of the case now? I know you filed it in the Supreme Court. Now what?
Okay. We filed it in the Supreme Court. We do think it's an issue that should be considered by the Supreme Court and probably eventually will be considered by the Supreme Court. And that's why we filed there. We knew that the Supreme Court could either deny jurisdiction entirely and the case would not be heard. They could hear it, or they could kick it down to the local court, which is for that purpose is in Leon County, Tallahassee, and require the hearings to be held there and then go through the normal appellate process. That's what they've done. So we are now in Leon County. We just recently were assigned a judge yesterday. And so we will be litigating in Tallahassee. The right to vote is diluted if this takes too long, right? The right to an election and the right for a candidate to run for a spot is diluted if this takes too long. So I will be filing, I actually already have it drafted, a motion for expedited proceeding so that we can get on the docket, not delay this in the normal course of civil litigation. Sometimes things take a couple years. This needs to be decided soon, and it needs to be decided before the governor goes through and actually makes a pick for who is going to be appointed in this position. Both of these women are warriors. I mean, it's not easy in this day and age to stand up on something that shouldn't be political. But when you stand up for something like this and you're standing up against the powers that be, it becomes potentially political or viewed as political, even though it's not. We're standing up for the rights of everybody. But you have to really be a strong warrior to be like, look, I'm going to do this in this day and age with the crazy politics that we have going on, with the strength that might be coming out of, and the rhetoric that might be coming out of Tallahassee. But I'm going to do it anyway. So I am so honored to represent both of these women.
Jessica says we're warriors. Okay. I think that's sort of funny, but it's true. Because when this all started, I told my husband, I'm going to be the voter in this thing. My husband says, oh no, you can't sue the governor. This could be bad for you. And I just said, In what sense? You know, wouldn't it be bad if I didn't stand up? But that is the knee-jerk reaction of the average person on the street and my husband. But he's used to me standing up to him for what's right. But that's what we're doing here, you know? And if it's not Marcy, and so everybody else is going to be scared, and if it's not Maggie and Jessica, you know, so we're not scared. And this is the right thing to do. So, yeah.
There's been a lot of talk and rhetoric about election security for this upcoming midterm elections, voters' integrity, and elections being stolen. What do you say? What do you think is the why that the governor is doing this?
I would just say it has the appearance of trying to stack the courts with his picks as much as possible and taking those choices away from voters who might have different picks. And as we know, he's out at the end of this term. We don't know what he's going to do next. And I think that there's no coincidence that kind of what generated this were an email or emails from the governor's office to the local judicial administration saying, hey, let us know who's going to be retiring or resigning before the end of the year. And in this particular case, Judge Garagozlo sent a retirement letter that was not sent to the governor's office, but somehow was segued to the governor's office. And the governor was like, okay, great. I'm treating your retirement letter as a resignation letter. He didn't call Judge Garagozlo and try to clarify his intent, whether it's to serve out his whole term or not. He just said, great, election canceled. I'm appointing someone. So, I mean, you know, it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It probably is a duck. So in this scenario, if we have someone who is actively seeking resignation and retirement letters and then immediately treats a retirement letter like a resignation letter and is doing this in other counties and circumventing the rights of the voters, it looks like there's an intent to stack the voters with his choices. Stack the judge positions with his choices before he leaves office.
Just for the record, the intention of the governor to be able to fill those vacancies is so that obviously you need to have a judge in these positions.
Right.
How long is Judge G's absence in practicality?
Judge Garagozlo's last day as a judge is January 4th. Okay, he's still on the bench currently. We could have an election before he leaves office. Now, he did send this letter of resignation, saying that he was going to do it, like his last day was going to be December 31st, which in all intents and purposes is just one business day prior to the end of his term, because with the holidays and weekends in there, there's only one day. We have time to have an election. The election is supposed to happen in August. Let's have an election. Let's have people have a say. And we have time to do it. So it's kind of funny because if you look at the definition in the Constitution of vacancy,
Amen.
A vacancy doesn't occur for a judge who's kind of MIA until he's MIA, like unexplained absence, for 60 days. I don't know why. He goes on a hike, he falls down a cliff, nobody knows where he is for 60 days. So he's still in office for 59 days. So why is the governor treating a 1 day absence as a vacancy? It doesn't meet the Constitution. It makes sense that Judge Garagozlo did this. In all honesty, like when Judge Garagozlo first did this, I thought potentially it was intentional because it is happening intentionally all across the state. But what we learned is that he didn't do this intentionally. He was shocked. He didn't intend to have the election canceled. And that he just put December 31st, which created this 1 day, just because it was the end of the year, it was final, and then it wouldn't delay like retirement benefits and all this paperwork. So it was an administrative thing. So, you know, it's 1 day, but yet I guess a judge can, fall off a cliff on the 58th day, come back on the 59th day, and that's not a vacancy, but the governor can treat a 1 day as a vacancy and justify appointing someone instead of having an election.